offensive against Hamas has widened to most of the territory.
The IDF says Israeli forces are operating within the laws of armed conflict and are trying to spare civilian lives.
Israel also says it shot down a drone Thursday that crossed into its territory from Lebanon. There were no immediate reports of casualties.
Israel's emergency minister says the country could step up its response to attacks from the Iran-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon. He said if the world and Lebanese government don't act to stop the attacks, the IDF will.
Another Hamas hostage is confirmed dead. She was a 70-year-old American-Israeli Canadian. A kibbutz in southern Israel made the announcement today.
According to the kibbutz, Judy Weinstein was fatally wounded during Hamas's October 7th attack in Israel, and her body remains held in Gaza. Her husband, an American-Israeli, was killed on October 7th. The U.S. announced yesterday what officials say could be the final package of military aid to Ukraine. That's unless Congress approves supplemental funding that's stalled on Capitol Hill. The military aid package is worth around $250 million and will be pulled from Pentagon stockpiles. It includes air munitions, artillery ammunition, and medical equipment. According to a Pentagon spokesman, no more funding is available to replace weapons taken from the department's stocks.
The Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative Fund is also depleted. Meanwhile, President Biden is urging Congress to pass another $110 billion aid package. More than half the requested package would include aid for Ukraine. It also includes a further $14 billion in aid for Israel and $14 billion to secure the southern border, with the remainder allocated for security needs in the Asia Pacific. Now for a look at immigration. A new report by the Center for Immigration Studies says illegal immigrant households use welfare significantly more than other households. Nearly 60% of illegal immigrant-led homes use one or more welfare programs, compared with around 40% of households headed by people born in the U.S.
Illegal immigrants can't access most welfare programs. More than half of such households have at least one U.S.-born child who can access the programs.
A dozen states offer Medicaid to allow low-income children, regardless of immigration status, some welfare.
Such kids also have access to various government food and meal programs.
Another report examines the immigration court backlog under the Biden administration. Syracuse University's Transaction Records Access Clearinghouse, or TRAC, says there were over 3 million pending cases in November.
The backlog has grown by about 1 million cases since November 2022.
The TRAC report says immigration judges are swamped, with each justice responsible for about 4,500 cases each. Federal employees will be getting a pay bump in 2024. President Biden has finalized an average pay raise of over 5%. It's the largest increase for federal workers in more than 4 decades. President Biden authorized the increase in an executive order signed on December 21st. The following day, he signed the National Defense Authorization Act for 2020, which included an over 5% raise for military personnel. The increase marks the largest since 1980, when former President Carter signed off on a 9.1% average increase.
And a development in the impeachment probe for President Biden. House Republicans are investigating if Biden tried to prevent or discourage his son, Hunter Biden, from complying with their subpoenas. They say such obstruction would be a punishable crime. Oversight Committee Chair James Comer and Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan sent a letter to White House counsel Edward Siskel. They're seeking all documents and communications sent or received by employees of the president's office regarding Hunter Biden's deposition.
Republicans subpoenaed Hunter Biden for a deposition set for December 13th. The president's son did not appear on that date. He instead went to Capitol grounds and made a public statement saying he would not comply with the subpoenas. The Federal Trade Commission said yesterday it filed a lawsuit against the largest Christian university in the nation. The FTC accuses Grand Canyon University of deceptive advertising, illegal telemarketing, and misrepresenting the school as a nonprofit. The FTC says the school deceived prospective doctoral students about the cost and course requirements of its doctoral programs, among other things.
The lawsuit follows a nearly $38 million fine on the university in October by the Education Department, also for misrepresenting the costs of its doctoral programs. The Education Department says fewer than 2% of doctoral graduates complete their program within the advertised cost. Grand Canyon University President Brian Mueller said at the time that the Biden administration was unfairly targeting the university. Gas prices will fall in 2024, according to CNN, citing gas information website GasBuddy.
Joining us now to discuss is NTD Business host Don Ma.
Don, what's the outlook for gas prices next year?
Well, GasBuddy had a forecast for 2023 as well, and it was pretty accurate. So, I think it's worth taking a look at what they say for 2024. So the company expects U.S. gas prices to be around averaging $3.38 a gallon in 2024, and that would represent actually a significant improvement compared to 2023 prices, which was an average of $3.51 a gallon. So if you calculate that, what that would amount to in terms of savings for Americans is about $32 billion less on fuel next year. So if this is true, of course, this is going to be welcome news for consumers because gasoline goes into everything that a lot of things, in fact, that we buy. So this could have a big impact, or potentially some impact at the very least, on the inflation measure. So GasBuddy predicts the national average to actually top out at $3.67 in May, and then it's going to drop down to $2.99 by December 2024. And the reason why GasBuddy is pretty optimistic about gas prices, despite a difficult geopolitical landscape right now, right, is that the United States is set to produce a record of 13 million barrels per day of oil during the fourth quarter of this year, and this is according to a report by S&P Global Commodity Insights. So, this could as well provide a cushion for consumers against spiking gas prices, but, we'll see.
So what are some of the factors that could make the prediction wrong?
Well, yeah, you're right. Like any forecast, this call for lower gas prices in 2024 could be a little bit off in either direction, depending on what factors are in play here. For example, if the U.S. economy sees a sudden slowdown, of course, that would dampen demand on gas, and that could potentially make the prices even lower than what GasBuddy had predicted. But on the other hand, if the Middle East conflict escalates, right, that could threaten energy supplies, and that could spike oil prices back up to $100 a barrel potentially, and that could push up gasoline prices. GasBuddy says that one major concern for them as well is America's refining capacity, because refineries are actually crucial when it comes to transforming crude oil to gasoline and other products. And we've seen that with extreme weather events this year, including heat waves. And they have at times knocked refineries offline, and this could put a bottleneck on the supply of gas. So, that could be a factor, and especially on the East Coast, it only takes one refinery to go down for gas prices to surge. But as always, another risk is hurricanes. They could have a huge impact on refineries as well. And let me just mention a couple more factors here. OPEC Plus, they haven't shied away from cutting oil supply, and that could be a factor as well. And the U.S.'s relationship with OPEC countries hasn't been that good, could be better. So this could also be a wild card when it comes to gas prices next year.
What else do you have for us in terms of business, Don?
Sure. The number of Americans filing for initial claims for unemployment benefits rose last week, and this is indicating the labor market continues to cool in this year's fourth quarter. The Labor Department says that new state unemployment benefit claims rose by 12,000 last week to 218,000. But this actually came within expectations, according to a Reuters poll. It showed that economists actually expected an increase of around 210,000 initial claims for the week ending December 23rd. In other news, oil prices lowered today as concerns eased about shipping disruptions along the Red Sea route. Oil prices dropped nearly 2% on Wednesday, and this is as major shipping firms begin returning to the Red Sea. Both the Brent and WTI benchmarks settled more than 2% higher in a previous session. So there's a dramatic change here, it seems. And as the latest attacks on the ships in the Red Sea actually prompted fears of shipping disruption, but it seems like those fears could be easing. But the prospect of a prolonged Israeli military campaign in Gaza still remains a major driver of market sentiment. And finally, Denmark's Maersk will sail almost all container vessels traveling between Asia and Europe through the Suez Canal from now on, while diverting only a handful around Africa. This is according to a Reuters breakdown of the group's schedule today. The company's schedule shows more than 50 Maersk vessels set to go via the Suez Canal in the coming weeks. This is, of course, after major shipping companies, including container giant Maersk and Hapag-Lloyd, stopped using the Red Sea routes and the Suez Canal earlier this month after Yemen's Houthi militant group began targeting vessels.